Marcus groaned as he regained consciousness, the sharp metallic tang of blood mixing with something more pungent. His body ached in ways he didn't think were possible, and his jumpsuit was torn in several places. He blinked against the dim, glowing light that surrounded him. The walls pulsed like they were alive, because they were. "Well, this is new," he muttered, sitting up and grimacing at the squishy floor beneath him. His fingers sunk slightly into the surface, a gelatinous substance clinging to his skin. Did I just land in a haunted meatball? The last thing he remembered was his ship spiraling out of control. He'd tried everything, rerouting power, stabilizing thrusters, even yelling at the control panel, but the planet's gravity had other plans. Now, instead of being a fiery smear on the landscape, he was here. His surroundings smelled vaguely of ammonia and something spicy. The faint glow on the walls illuminated translucent veins coursing with some kind of bioluminescent fluid. Marcus poked the nearest wall experimentally. It jiggled. Great. Swallowed whole by a giant alien thing. Add that to the bucket list, he said, pulling himself to his feet. His boots squelched with every step, the sound unnervingly similar to walking on a wet sponge. The corridor stretched out ahead, curving slightly, the walls gently pulsing as if breathing. A low rumble echoed through the space, and Marcus froze. "Okay, no sudden movements. You're not food. You're not food," he whispered, edging along the corridor. A burst of liquid sprayed from an orifice above him, narrowly missing his head. "Correction, you're not fast food." As he ventured deeper, he noticed clusters of strange, glowing plants growing along the walls. Their colors shifted in waves, and their tendrils reached out like curious fingers. One brushed against his arm, and he yelped, jerking away. "All right, plants that grope you. Fantastic. What's next, singing mushrooms?" The deeper he went, the more he noticed the peculiarities of his surroundings. Pools of viscous fluid dotted the floor, some bubbling ominously. He gave those a wide berth. Then there were the strange formations jutting from the walls, spiny, rib-like structures that seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the faint thrum in the air. His stomach growled, breaking the tense silence. He sighed, leaning against the least revolting part of the wall. Day 1, trapped in the belly of some bioorganic nightmare. No food, no water, no clue. If I make it out of this alive, I'm filing the most aggressive complaint in colonization history. A sudden, loud squelching noise behind him made him whip around. A creature emerged from the shadows. At first, he thought it was another part of the environment until it moved, a lithe, humanoid figure with shimmering skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Its large, luminous eyes blinked at him with what could only be described as amusement. "Ah, hi," Marcus said, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. The creature tilted its head, and a melodic series of clicks and hums filled the air. It pointed at him, then at the wall, then back at him. "I don't speak," click. Marcus said, wincing at how dumb he sounded. The creature stepped closer, its movements graceful and almost playful. It reached out, its fingers brushing against his arm. He froze, unsure whether to flinch or let it happen. "You're not gonna eat me, are you?" "Because I'm mostly gristle. Bad for digestion." The creature, no, she let out a sound that could only be described as laughter. She gestured again, this time pointing to a cluster of the glowing plants. When Marcus didn't move, she rolled her eyes and grabbed his wrist, pulling him along. "All right, alien lady, lead the way. Not like I have a better plan." She guided him to one of the glowing plants and plucked a tendril, handing it to him. He examined it skeptically. "You want me to eat this? It's still moving." He held it up, and the tendril wiggled as if offended. The alien girl mimed eating, then pointed at him expectantly. "Fine, but if this thing lays eggs in me, I'm haunting you." He took a hesitant bite. The plant tasted sweet, with a bizarre spicy aftertaste that made his tongue tingle. His stomach growled again, this time in approval. The girl clapped her hands, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. "Great, glad you're entertained. What do I call you, anyway? Or should I just stick with glowy alien lady? She cocked her head, then gestured to herself and made a sound that vaguely resembled Rika. Rika, huh? All right. I'm Marcus. Nice to meet you, I guess. Thanks for not letting me starve. Rika made a series of gestures, pointing to her glowing skin, then to Marcus's jumpsuit, and finally miming something that looked suspiciously like stripping. Oh, no. No, 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 Marcus said, backing away. The jumpsuit stays on. Boundaries, lady. We just met. Rika smirked, a mischievous glint in her eyes, and walked off, leaving Marcus standing there, half-eaten plant in hand. Well, that's not unsettling at all, he muttered, following her. As they moved deeper into the beast, Marcus couldn't help but feel a strange sense of hope. Sure, he was trapped in a living nightmare with a sassy alien, but at least he wasn't alone. Marcus trudged along behind Rika, still unsure if he was being guided to salvation or served up as an entree. Her movements were so fluid, almost hypnotic, as if the beast's pulsating corridors bent to her will. She occasionally glanced back at him with a smirk, as if she knew something he didn't, and that something probably wasn't reassuring. So, Rika, Marcus said, breaking the squelchy silence. You've been living in here for how long? And, how are you not losing your mind? Rika turned, her glowing eyes narrowing playfully. She made a gesture, circling her head with a finger, then pointed at Marcus. Okay, I walked right into that one. Nice to know sarcasm is universal, he muttered. She hummed a series of melodic notes, her hands making fluid motions. Marcus squinted, trying to decode her alien charades. Right, because interpreting interpretive dance is totally my strong suit. He pointed at himself. Engineer. Not, whatever this is. Rika rolled her eyes and waved him forward. They entered a larger chamber where the walls pulsed more intensely. Strange, luminescent orbs hung from the ceiling, their colors shifting in mesmerizing patterns. Marcus paused, staring at the scene. Is it just me, or does this place look alive in a way that makes you question your entire existence? Rika smirked and motioned for him to sit near a bubbling pool of iridescent liquid. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let me just park it right next to the space jacuzzi of doom, Marcus said, sitting reluctantly. Rika dipped her fingers into the pool, the liquid clinging to her skin like syrup. She gestured for Marcus to do the same. Hard pass. The last time I touched something in here, it tried to eat my boots. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength and dunked his hand into the pool. The liquid was warm, almost soothing, and tiny bubbles popped against his skin. All right, I'll admit, this is weirdly pleasant. What's the catch? Does it dissolve my hand after 10 minutes? Rika shook her head, laughing silently, and tapped the side of the pool. A faint vibration ran through the floor. Suddenly, an elongated, eel-like creature with translucent skin slithered out of the liquid. Marcus jumped back, yanking his hand free. Nope. Nope. Not a fan, he said, holding his hands up defensively. The creature coiled around Rika's arm like a pet snake, its head nuzzling her shoulder. She stroked it gently, cooing in that strange musical language of hers. Great. She's a space snake charmer. Of course she is, Marcus muttered. Rika held the creature out to him, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Yeah, that's gonna be a no from me, thanks. He took a step back, but the eel lunged, wrapping around his arm. Marcus froze, his breath hitching. Okay, buddy, let's establish some ground rules. Rule 1, no biting. Rule 2, no, whatever else you might do. Just don't. To his surprise, the creature didn't attack. Instead, it glowed faintly, its light synchronizing with the pulsating chamber. Marcus felt a strange warmth spread through his body, like a mild electric current. Alright, that's weird. Kind of tingly. Not terrible, though, he admitted. Rika clapped her hands, clearly pleased, and the eel uncoiled, slithering back into the pool. What was that? Alien Reiki? Some kind of biological compatibility test? Rika tapped her chest, then pointed at him, then mind something exploding. Marcus frowned. You're saying this thing bonded us somehow? Like a symbiotic connection? She nodded, her grin widening. Fantastic. I'm part of the food chain now, he said, sighing. Just what I always wanted. Rika reached into a pouch on her belt, a belt he hadn't noticed until now, probably because her glowing skin was distracting, and pulled out a small, crystalline object. She handed it to him, motioning for him to hold it up to his ear. All right, Space Walkman, don't fail me now. He held the crystal up, and a faint hum filled his ears, followed by a distorted voice. Understand? Marcus blinked. Wait, did you just say understand? Is this thing translating you? Rika nodded, her smile triumphant. Oh, thank God. I was starting to feel like I was stuck in an alien mime show, Marcus said. Rika, name, the crystal transmitted in a halting, robotic tone. Yeah, I got that part, Marcus said. And you already know I'm Marcus. So, what's the deal with this place? Why are you here? Rika's expression softened. She gestured around the chamber, then placed her hand on the wall, her glow dimming slightly. This beast, home, the crystal translated. Life, safe here. Safe? Lady, I don't know what your definition of safe is, but I've been nearly digested twice today, Marcus said. Rika's laugh came through the crystal, clearer now. Humans, fragile. Hey, we're not fragile. We're adaptable. Big difference, Marcus shot back. Rika tilted her head, clearly unconvinced. Well, adaptable enough to keep up with you, at least, he muttered. All right, show me what else this oversized stomach has to offer. Preferably something not trying to kill me. Rika grinned and gestured for him to follow. Despite his reservations, Marcus couldn't help but feel a growing sense of curiosity, and, if he was honest, a strange fondness for his glowing, enigmatic guide. Marcus adjusted his makeshift belt, a cobbled-together contraption of alien tendrils and some fabric salvaged from his ship's wreckage. It wasn't the most dignified look, but he'd given up on dignity somewhere between being swallowed alive and wrestling with mucus-covered corridors. Rika led the way again, her movements light and confident. Her ability to navigate the beast's labyrinthine interior without hesitation was equal parts impressive and irritating. Marcus, on the other hand, stumbled along, trying not to trip over every squishy protrusion that seemed determined to sabotage him. Question, Marcus said, stepping over a pulsating vein-like structure. Does this thing we're in have a name? Or do you just call it home sweet giant belly? Rika paused, considering, before she tapped the translation crystal. Arkansas. Ark? Like, Noah's Ark? Marcus asked. Rika tilted her head, unfamiliar with the reference, then gestured to the walls. Ark carries life. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. Wait. Are you saying this thing is some kind of living spaceship? Biological preservation unit. Rika nodded. Old, very old. Dying. Dying? That's not ominous at all, Marcus muttered. And you're just living in here? Riding it out? Rika shrugged, but her expression turned somber. All right, let's break this down, Marcus said, pacing slightly. This thing's supposed to preserve life, but it's falling apart. How long do we have before it decides to just expire? Rika made a vague gesture, then pointed at Marcus. Fix. Marcus stopped in his tracks. Fix? You think I can fix this? I'm an engineer, not a miracle worker. I can barely fix my boots, let alone a living starship. Rika smirked, clearly enjoying his flustered reaction. You've got a lot of faith in someone who just learned how to eat your glowing algae, Marcus grumbled. She motioned for him to follow her again, this time down a narrower passage that seemed to hum with energy. Marcus hesitated, but curiosity got the better of him. The walls here were different, smoother, almost metallic, with faintly glowing patterns that pulsed in a rhythmic sequence. "Okay, this is new," Marcus said, running his fingers along the surface. "This doesn't feel alive. This feels like tech." Rika nodded, tapping the wall with a rhythmic pattern. A section of it slid open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with what could only be described as alien machinery. Marcus's jaw dropped. "You've been sitting on this the whole time? And you just now decided to show me?" Rika shrugged, as if to say, "You weren't ready before." "Right. Sure. I wasn't ready," Marcus said, stepping inside. "Let me guess, this is the beast's brain, or heart, or whatever keeps it ticking." Rika pointed at a central console-like structure. "Core." Marcus approached it cautiously. The console glowed faintly, its surface shifting under his touch like liquid metal. Symbols and patterns flickered across it, none of which made any sense to him. "Yeah, this might as well be hieroglyphics," Marcus said, scratching his head. "I don't suppose you've got a manual?" Rika didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand on the console, her glow intensifying. The symbols shifted, rearranging themselves into a series of diagrams. "Okay, that's helpful," Marcus admitted. "Still gibberish, but at least it's organized gibberish." He studied the diagrams, his engineering instincts kicking in. Some of the components looked vaguely familiar: power conduits, energy regulators, something that might have been a coolant system. It wasn't entirely alien, which gave him a small shred of hope. "All right, I might be able to do something with this," he said, more to himself than to Rika. "But if this goes sideways, I'm blaming you." Rika grinned, clearly unfazed by his skepticism. Marcus pulled out his toolkit, what little of it he had left, and set to work. The core was surprisingly responsive, almost as if it recognized his intent. It was like working on a machine that wanted to help, which was both comforting and unnerving. As he worked, Rika watched intently, occasionally pointing out something he'd missed or gesturing when he hesitated. Their communication was still far from perfect, but they were beginning to find a rhythm. "This would be a lot easier if you could just explain what all this does," Marcus muttered. Rika tapped the crystal. "Learn by doing." "Yeah, thanks for that sage wisdom, Yoda," Marcus said, rolling his eyes. After what felt like hours, the core began to hum with renewed energy. The chamber brightened, and the rhythmic pulsing of the walls grew steadier. Did we just fix it?" Marcus asked, glancing at Rika. She nodded, her expression triumphant. "Well, color me impressed," Marcus said, leaning back and wiping sweat from his brow. "Maybe humans aren't as fragile as you think." Rika's laughter echoed through the crystal, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "All right, what's next? Do we throw this thing into overdrive or just pray it holds together long enough to not kill us?" Rika gestured toward another passage, her grin suggesting she had more surprises in store. Marcus sighed. "Of course there's more. There's always more." Despite his grumbling, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of accomplishment, and maybe, just maybe, a little admiration for his enigmatic companion. Marcus leaned against the core chamber's wall, letting out a long sigh. His hands were caked with alien residue, his muscles ached, and his mind buzzed with questions. But at least, for now, the beast seemed stable. The rhythmic pulsing in the walls had steadied, a tangible sign that the enormous creature's systems were recovering. Rika stood nearby, her expression unreadable. She seemed pleased, though, and when she extended a hand toward him, Marcus hesitated before shaking it. Her skin was cooler than he expected, the texture strange yet oddly comforting. "All right, teamwork for the win," Marcus muttered. "Now what? Do we just sit back and wait for this thing to grow wings and fly us out of here?" Rika tilted her head, confused, and then laughed. Her laughter was different this time, lighter, almost teasing. Marcus had grown accustomed to her quirks, but he wasn't sure if she was laughing at him or the absurdity of the situation. Before he could press her for an explanation, the chamber trembled. Marcus instinctively grabbed onto a nearby support structure. "What now?" Is this thing having a heart attack? Rika's eyes widened, and she darted toward the console. Her hands moved in a blur, activating something that caused a section of the wall to ripple and transform. What did you do? Marcus asked, watching as a translucent surface formed, offering a view outside the beast's body. The sight was breathtaking. They were suspended in the middle of a vast alien forest, the ground below a writhing carpet of bioluminescent flora. Predators, like the ones Marcus had encountered earlier, prowled the edges, their glowing eyes scanning the terrain. Great. Looks like we're still on the menu, Marcus muttered. Rika tapped her crystal. Not safe, here. Move. Move? This thing can move? Marcus asked, incredulous. Rika nodded, her hands gesturing toward the console. Symbols flashed across it, and the beast's walls began to vibrate with new intensity. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him as the beast stirred. The motion wasn't smooth, it was like riding in a vehicle with no suspension, but it was effective. Through the translucent surface, Marcus could see the predators scatter, their snarls muffled as the enormous creature began to rise. This is insane, Marcus said, gripping a nearby support. We're in a living, breathing death bus. Rika smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The beast lumbered forward, its movements slow but deliberate. Marcus noticed how the ground reacted to its presence, plants retracted, the bioluminescence dimming as if in submission. The predators kept their distance, unwilling to challenge the towering mass. Okay, I'll admit, this is kind of awesome, Marcus said, a small grin forming. But where exactly are we going? Rika pointed toward the horizon, where a faint glow marked something unfamiliar. Destination, she said simply. That's helpful, Marcus replied, rolling his eyes. You know, a little more context wouldn't kill you. Rika smirked, clearly enjoying his frustration. As the beast continued its journey, the chamber began to shift. Panels opened to reveal storage compartments filled with strange, shimmering objects. Marcus picked up one, examining its smooth, reflective surface. What's this? He asked, holding it up. Rika tapped the crystal, but the translation offered only one word, seeds. Marcus frowned. Seeds? For what? Rika gestured toward the console, and more symbols appeared. This time, they depicted planets, barren, lifeless worlds transforming into lush landscapes. Marcus's jaw dropped. You're telling me this thing, it's terraforming? It's carrying seeds to bring dead planets back to life? Rika nodded, her expression serious. Okay, that's officially the coolest thing I've ever heard, Marcus admitted. But why is it here? Why isn't it, I don't know, out there saving planets? Rika hesitated, her gaze dropping. Ah, Marcus said, understanding dawning. It's stuck, isn't it? Something went wrong, and now it's stranded here, dying. That's why you need me. Rika didn't respond, but her silence spoke volumes. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, fine. Let's fix your intergalactic greenhouse. But you'd better not forget to mention any more surprises, okay? Rika's smirk returned, but there was a softness to it this time, an unspoken gratitude. The beast's journey continued, the glow on the horizon growing brighter. Marcus could feel the tension in the air, a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Whatever lay ahead, it was clear this was only the beginning of something much bigger. And for the first time since crash landing, Marcus felt a flicker of hope.